Chasing Purpose was designed to empower, uplift, and enlighten you on your journey in chasing your purpose.
Don't waste your time with thoughts of giving up.
Chasing Purpose.
Not too late for us to try. We can overcome.
Chasing Purpose. Candid conversations, nurturing faith, pursuing aspirations, setting intentions.
Together we rise, divided we fall.
Yeah.
Let Jah lead the way.
Chasing Purpose.
Cause God always a listen.
Chasing Purpose.
One day I have to win. That's why I'ma try again.
Chasing Purpose. Mondays, 7 p.m. on Arijam Radio, Arijam 360, or arijamradio.com. Hosted by Cynthia Shea.
Words may not say exactly how I'm feeling, the hurt and the hate and the love I'm receiving. I'm gonna be okay, I tell myself while I'm breathing. It's gonna be okay. Remember, said you're not sleeping.
Even when the news channel where the TV depend, showing leaders brandishing atomic weapons, they're threatening world peace, spreading mass depression, and then divide and leading them in the wrong direction. Still I can feel the Almighty working. When I take a deep breath and do little searching, I find your love is in fine, and future looking quite fine. But even if it isn't, I'm going to be okay. Yeah, it's what I tell myself.
I'm going to be okay.
Don't watch nobody else.
I'm going to be okay.
Gonna be. I'm not to say.
I'm going to be okay.
Okay.
Stresses are common threat to my happiness. But if I let it get too deep, it's too deep.
Ooh, yeah.
In a depressive state, I tell myself it's strong and one on the fate. I tell myself there's reason to celebrate. Things will be great. But even if it isn't, I'm going to be okay.
That's what I tell myself.
I'm going to be okay.
No, don't watch nobody else.
I'm going to be okay.
I know to say.
I'm going to be okay. Persecution is a lesson to bear, and any road that I choose could be bringing it nearer to me. But there's a lesson if I let go the fear. That is the code for the goals, and it's making it clearer to me. Sometimes I feel so much that I get overcome. But your love is real, and surely that is where the lesson coming from. And even if it isn't, I'm going to be.
Welcome to Chasing Purpose, heard every Monday at 7 p.m. right here at our home at Arijam Radio, on our app at Arijam 360, as well as arijamradio.com. We love to hear your views and reviews. Please share them with us at 888-546-8742. That's 888-546-8742. You can also email us at chasingpurpose on irijam@gmail.com. Stay connected with us via our social media platforms on Facebook, Chasing Purpose, and be sure to join our Facebook group entitled Purpose Soars. Follow us over on Instagram at chasingpurpose_on-purpose. Be sure to follow, like, and share. Grab a pen, grab your journals, grab a glass of water as we dive into more candid conversations. How many of my purpose soars who started this journey with me from about September 12th or so I believe was our first show, remember me saying that in order for us to find our purpose, chase our purpose, hone our purpose, drive and thrive in our purpose, that more of us would be required. More reading, more writing, more journaling, more listening, more speaking, more nurturing of our faith, more setting intentions, more pursuing our aspirations, and more love, especially of ourselves, which includes more self-care. All around, more of us is required. And guys in the background, say it with me, more of us is required.
More of us is required.
Welcome to Chasing Purpose, where we have candid conversations centered around nurturing faith, setting intentions, pursuing aspirations, all while living boldly. I, your host, Cynthia Shea, am humbled and honored to share space and time with you every Monday, especially this Monday. Today is a check-in. We want to know, how is that more coming along for you? That more journey, how's that happening for you? Have you started your more journey? Trust me, I get it. How could I ask you, us, to do more when we are literally on this hamster wheel called life? We're working on our marriages, raising our families, finishing up college or starting college, working on 9 to 5, sometimes 2 jobs, opening new businesses, dare I say homeschooling, all these things. And we must do more. We must do more. All right. Inhale and exhale with me. Let me dial you in on my reasoning. If we do not engage in this more, we are surely headed for burnout. This term burnout was coined in the 1970s by American psychologist Herbert Freudenberger. He used it to describe the consequences of severe stress. Nowadays, the term has evolved to apply to anyone consistently experiencing these main symptoms. 1, consistent emotional and physical exhaustion. 2, alienated and emotionally distant due to constant stress and frustration. And lastly, 3, reduced performance or ability to complete everyday tasks. Now, here are some signs and symptoms of burnout. Physical signs and symptoms are feeling tired and drained most of the time, lowered immunity, frequent illnesses, frequent headaches or muscle pain, change in appetite or sleep habits. Emotional signs of the symptoms of burnout are sense of failure and self-doubt, feeling helpless, trapped, and defeated, detachment, feeling alone in the world, loss of motivation, increasingly cynical and negative outlooks, decreased satisfaction and sense of accomplishment. Now, the behavioral signs and symptoms of burnout are withdrawing from responsibilities, isolating yourselves from others, procrastinating, taking longer to get things done, using food, drugs, or alcohol to cope, taking our frustrations out on others, skipping work or coming in late and leaving early. All of these are signs of burnout. All of these, and let me just be clear on something. There's no topic that I bring to Chasing Purpose that I have not gone through. So this same burnout thing I have faced or have been through. This evening, we continue our conversation and we welcome Dr. Clarke. As a mental health specialist, she states that her goal is to assist on your journey to achieving a full and satisfying life. Allow me to support you as you take the first steps to heal. Dr. Clarke uses a variety of methods to assist us in creating and achieving mental health goals. Specialties include depression, life transition, grief, assault, childhood traumas, and life issues. She works with adolescents and adults in individual, couple, and family therapy. Welcome to Chasing Purpose, Dr. Clarke. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well. Thank you for having me.
So, I know so much about you, so I'm honored that you're here. So I'm going to get right into the questions. Dr. Clarke, what does burnout look like in your personal life and your career?
So often it kind of looks the same in both, just in terms of sometimes feeling consistently overwhelmed. So it doesn't matter how many tasks you have to do for the day, it all just begins to feel like too much. Sometimes a lack of enjoyment. So if you were at a job and you really liked it, and then every day it feels like I'm dreading getting up in the morning to go to work. The same thing at home, like it starts to feel very mundane and you start to feel kind of disconnected. And again, in that space where by the end of the day, sometimes you're feeling like really tired and drained and you don't quite know why. And it doesn't matter if it was a really hectic day or not such a hectic day, that you just kind of consistently just feel tired and drained and like you just need a break.
Right. What steps can be taken to prevent burnout, both professionally and personally?
So one thing that is important in both settings is really self-care. The way you take care of yourself is really going to determine how you manage everything you have on your plate. I know it's talked about a lot in terms of self-care, but often we talk and the practice of it is not as good as the talk about it. And I will say that as a professional that works with many people and consistently talks to them about the importance of it, practicing it in my own life is not always coming together well, even though I try.
Yeah.
But it's really about creating a self-care plan for yourself and whatever that looks like for you. So it can be things like watching a silly TV show that you just like, that doesn't require a lot of thought. It doesn't require a lot from you. It's just something that you enjoy. Exercising. Exercise is a great way of self-care. There are those of us that don't really enjoy it. However, right, there are benefits. I don't enjoy it either, but I still do it, right? There are benefits that it gives to your body, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. It's good for you. And so figuring out what do you like in the exercising realm, right? So you may not be like, I want to go to Pilates every week, but maybe you don't mind taking a walk 2 or 3 days a week. Figuring out what works for you. And really creating a plan for yourself, whether it's reading or journaling, listening to music. There's no right or wrong in terms of a self-care plan. It's really figuring out what are the things that help me to feel good, what are the things that help me to feel recharged, and making a commitment to yourself to incorporate them into your week.
How can we apply that to professionally? So we're in the office, our co-workers annoying us, our boss is constantly down on us. We already came in with this anxiety. How do we cope with in a professional setting?
So I think in our current state of affairs, right, many of us are doing a variety. Some people I know are still going into the office. A lot of us are working from home, and finding that balance sometimes feels really hard. And so if you're in the office, making mention to do things like take lunch, which is something that many of us don't think about, right? Like you warm up your food or you go grab your lunch, you sit back at your desk and you keep working. But being more mindful about that so that if you have the hour lunch, you have it for a reason, utilizing it. I get that depending on your job, that's not always, it doesn't always feel so ideal. So maybe if you can't do it 5 days a week, at least 2 days a week, committing to, I'm going to take my lunch. If that means instead of having them deliver the food, that means I'm going to go out and pick it up because that gives me at least 20 minutes out of the office. Taking breaks where appropriate. So I know everyone's office looks a little bit different. Knowing that you don't have to be a smoker to have a reason to go outside. So even again, if it's, I'm going to get up and get away from my desk and take a walk for 10 minutes and then I'm going to come back. For those of us working from home, really thinking about how do you break up the routine. Right. So sometimes that means in the morning, even though I know you're going to sit behind your computer, still getting up and putting on your makeup or, you know, getting dressed as though you were going to go into the office. Instead of making a cup of coffee in your house some mornings, maybe driving, walking to the Dunkin' Donuts or the Starbucks, getting out the house for a couple of minutes before you start your day. Same things about taking a walk. So maybe during the day, taking a walk. When you're at home, actually, again, taking your lunch break, not telling yourself, I'm at home, so I'm just going to keep going, right? Finding ways, little ways to take care of yourself during the day. If you enjoy some of your coworkers, maybe finding a space where you guys kind of check in on one another, right? So not commiserating about the things you hate about the job, but taking a moment just to say, how was your evening? How's your day going? Talking about the things that are good for the day.
Important. What are signs of mental illness?
So there's no like set sign of mental illness. So I'm going to give you some things, but also with the preface that even if you experience these things, it does not mean that you have a mental illness, right? And the biggest thing about signs of mental illness for the individual is really a change in their level of functioning, right? And a significant change in their level of functioning. And so sometimes we think, you know, just because someone seems sad and that's not how they usually be, that automatically means something is wrong with them. But the reality is that we are all transitioning through life. And there are moments where we're all going to experience certain things. And it's not that you experience it, it's really about the level to which you experience it. And so some signs can be eating too much or eating too little, right? Pulling away from people or activities that you once enjoyed. Experiencing low mood or low energy for things, feeling helpless or hopeless, smoking, drinking, or using drugs more than usual, right? So drinking alcohol is not inherently a problem. There are people who drink a glass of wine every night. Doesn't mean you're an alcoholic. Doesn't mean something is wrong with you. But let's say you used to drink a glass of wine every night, and now you find that you're drinking a bottle of wine a night, right? That's a significant change and maybe something to look into, right? And just similarly in terms of mood and things, right? Life happens. And so let's say you've had a significant loss and you're feeling sad. Again, putting it in context, this is not coming out of nowhere. And I always caution people about diagnosing themselves, right? We are all people. We are human. There are moments where you're going to be anxious. There's moments where you're going to be sad. There's moments where you're going to feel a little bit off. That does not mean that you are clinically anything, right? It means that you are a person going through life, right? I think it's times when you recognize that it's happening for a longer period, that it feels like you don't have control over it. Those are the times where you may want to seek some additional support.
Is mental illness hereditary?
So there are some forms of mental illness that are hereditary. So more significant diagnosis like schizophrenia, there's a genetic component to it. So whereas if that is a diagnosis that's within your family, it's more likely to show up in later generations. Depression, there's also a genetic component to depression. And so if you have parents or grandparents that experience it, that you're more likely to. Alcoholism is another one that there is a genetic component to it, so that if you have a grandfather or a parent that is an alcoholic, or as a parent, if you know that you have issues with alcohol, it's something to educate your children about, because there is a likelihood that they will. And I also want to say, just because you are genetically predisposed to something, it does not mean it's going to show up in you. Right? So we all have history, right? We all have genetics in terms of medical stuff as well as mental illness. Just because it's there in your family does not mean that you're going to experience it. But there is a probability that you will. And so being aware of that is really important.
Okay. All right. Stick and stay, everybody. We're going to jump to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we continue our discussion with Dr. Clarke about burnout.
While I originate, others trying to imitate.
Irie Jam, the most imitated Caribbean sound north of Montego Bay.
Aeromark Shipping is your direct connection to Jamaica. They specialize in shipping full container loads with personal effects, cars, trucks, buses, and heavy construction equipment or commercial cargo to Kingston and Montego Bay. Weekly sailings with the fastest transit time in the industry, receiving vehicles Monday through Friday in Brooklyn from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Call 973-690-5363. 973-690-5363. Aeromark Shipping's direct connect to Jamaica, straight like an arrow.
Have you filed your taxes yet? Call Horizon City Advisors LLC, 718-954-6619. File your taxes now for as low as $99. $99. Did you hear I said? 718-954-6619. Call them now. Horizon City Advisors LLC, 718-954-6619. Call them today.
Looking for a recording studio in Queens? Well, look no further. Red Room Recording Studio for all your recording needs. Mixing, mastering, production, event space, DJs. Looking for somewhere to do your mix CDs? Well, look no further. Contact Red Room Studio, 718-962-8784. 718-962-8784. Red Room Recording Studio for all your recording needs.
Jamaica Smooth CBD-infused gummies and capsules are a great way to combat anxiety and sleep disorders. On top of tasting amazing, our island-inspired gummies and CBD capsules allow you to get the exact dosage of CBD without having to guess. Simply take them as you would daily vitamins and let the CBD work its way to help soothe and relax you. I'm Joe, your CBD expert. Order now at jamaicasmooth.com or call us 1-833-766-6845. That's 1-833-SMOOTH-5.
The Gleaner brings you its Reggae and Black History Month special publication, available starting February 16. Learn about influential black leaders, reggae icons, reggae in the diaspora, and local reggae and Black History Month events. Pick up a copy free at your agent location in the USA or Canada, or visit go-jamaica.com/NA-black-history. The Reggae and Black History Month special publication for Jamaicans everywhere. The Gleaner, where life unfolds.
Now serving at window number 33.
Ditch long lines and hassle with express DMV services at Origin Insurance Brokerage Services at 224-05 Linden Boulevard in Cambria Heights, Queens. Origin provides vehicle registration, driver's license renewal, 6-hour defensive driving course, and other DMV transactions. Telephone 347-475-8724, 347-475-8724, or 929-460-8059. That's 929-460-8059. Origin Insurance Brokerage Services, keeping you on the move.
Irie Jam.
Wait the town and tell the people.
You're listening to Irie Jam.
Physical days coming your way.
Peace of mind. That's just what I seek to find. Oh yeah, I ain't in the mood. I just need some solitude. Oh gosh, but everybody's trying to talk to me and nobody trying to hear me out. So you've got some things to say. Honestly, you're just a movie mount. The things you say, it makes no sense, and I'm out of time to figure it out. Leave me alone. It's best you just leave me out. See, what I'm trying to say is that this caused me so much pain. Feeling like I've got no control over my own brain. And it's sad to see that you don't see it's driving me insane. Leave me alone. Oh yes. Yo, right you know enough of them forget block and delete. Airplane mode out the life, you're so sweet. Come and bring off my line 7 days of the week. Oh, me no feel right now, me no feel sleep. Lila beg you this, Lila beg you that. Aye, shut your aye, cut the crap. 2020 now, certain things we stop, so we disappear to the habitat. Cause everybody's trying to talk to me, but nobody wanna hear me out. Everybody's got some things to say, honestly, them just I move them out. The things I say, I'm telling you with. Leave me alone. Oh gosh. Yo, everybody's trying to talk to me, and I don't know just what's to breathe. Certain things them hear and things them see. Call me up on them radio and TV. One bag of long talking, no, I know one of those days. What make you ever want start come close when you know say I'm gonna get paid? Sometimes I don't understand why you can't give me some.
Welcome back to Chasing Purpose. Tonight we are discussing burnout with Dr. Clarke. Dr. Clarke, why do you think it is that we find it so hard to seek help or speak to a therapist?
Well, when we look at communities of color, there has been a long history of mistrust with the medical system to begin with. And then in many families, we're taught that your business stays within your family. You're not supposed to share and talk about those things. And so the idea of going to therapy is often very hard for people of color, particularly for people of Caribbean descent. It's not the thing to do, right? And then there's always this talk of like, are you crazy? And like, why do you need to go? And actually for me, a lot of my work is with the Caribbean community, destigmatizing the idea of mental health being this thing that, you know, we don't talk about, or, you know, we think that person is just so, and we just leave them be. Like really supporting the idea that it is okay to take care of yourself. It is okay to have a safe space to talk about things, and really supporting the notion that, you know, your story is important. You feeling good about you, having a space to talk about the things that have happened to you is okay. And so for many people, some of it is cultural context, some of it is the discomfort of the reality of, if I haven't been able to talk about this with the people I've experienced it with, what makes me think I can go out in the world and talk to a stranger about it, and that's going to be okay. But I think, again, that space of trying it, stepping out, seeing what it's like, and a lot of people find that once they get into that space and the therapist for them is a good fit, that it is very helpful, and that they realize the power of being able to talk about their experiences and receive some support.
Yeah. How can we truly harness the power to heal from past trauma?
That is often done with a lot of support. And so part of it is learning how to tell your story. Often when we've been through negative situations, we forever see ourselves as victims. But seeing yourself as a victim is not what helps you to move forward. Seeing yourself as a survivor is what helps you get to the next place. And understanding that just because I've been through a traumatic experience, it doesn't have to define who I am for the rest of my life. It is a part of my story. And how do I learn how to incorporate that traumatic experience into my story, make meaning of it, and figure out what my move forward is? And again, that I'm a survivor of this. I'm not a victim of it. And as we learn that I'm a survivor, what have I learned from that negative experience? What are my takeaways? Really learning also not to blame yourself for the things that have happened, right? That there are things that happen to us that are out of our control. And it's at the point at which when we get to have choice and voice and make decisions for ourselves, that's what counts. What am I doing with it now, right? So am I forever talking about the thing that happened to me when I was 4 and making it the justification for everything I do?
Right.
Or am I able to say, this happened to me when I was 4. However, this is how I'm moving forward. This is how I'm taking care of myself. This is how I'm building my life in spite of those things that have occurred.
Why have we been so conditioned to discriminate against persons with mental illness?
I think it's the fear of the unknown. And so when people are other than, right, we make a story about who they are, about who they can be, what the dangerousness of them is. And I'm not saying that people with mental health issues haven't done things, because clearly they have, but we also know that there are many people with no mental health issues that have done a lot of really scary things. And I think that a lot of it is a lack of education. And so what happens is we create this rhetoric about what someone with mental illness looks like, what they're gonna act like, how they're gonna interact. And the reality is that most of us have experienced depression at some point in our life. The reality is that most of us know someone personally with mental illness. And the reality is that most crimes are not committed by people with mental illness. And so it's really about that piece of psychoeducation. And again, working towards changing the narrative about what mental health looks like, what are the risks with mental health, you know, with having a mental illness, instead of kind of continuing to perpetuate those negative stereotypes of this is the danger of someone who has a mental illness.
You touched on it earlier, but I'd like you to expound. How important is the more that we discussed earlier?
Very important, right? I think that, again, it's about that finding those ways to take care of you, whatever that looks like. And if journaling helps, then journal, right? I think that sometimes we get very stuck in the what it's supposed to look like in order for it to be helpful. So we get the idea that like, if I say I'm going to journal, that means I have to journal every day for 20 minutes and that's what it needs to look like. But the reality is you could journal twice a week because that's what works for you, right? Thinking about devotionals. I know a lot of the devotional books tell you that it's a daily devotional, but if doing it for your work week is what works for you, then do it, right? I think it's really about really tapping into our own stuff and tailoring things to a way that works for us, not the way we think people say we should do it.
Yes, I love that. How important is your faith in your career field?
Very important. I mean, I got into the mental health field based on some of my own experiences. And then as I've done the work, I've been able to be touched by beautiful people, amazing families. Having a sense of faith is what has kept me coming back for the work. A lot of it is really hard working with people who have been through really traumatic things, things that as a person, even as a professional, I couldn't imagine living through. And having that sense of faith, knowing that I am doing and I'm walking in my purpose and knowing that I'm genuinely helping people to get to a different place is what makes it easier for me to show up the next day. And really that space of taking care of myself and nurturing my own faith is what's helped me to kind of come back and show up for my clients and make sure that I'm taking care of them, but I'm also taking care of myself so that I'm able to continue to do the work.
Dr. Clarke, you spoke about having a self-care plan, which I've never heard that before, but I think it is absolutely brilliant. Can you tell me what your self-care plan is?
I can tell you what it is in ideal. How well I practice it is always like a question mark. But my self-care plan is one, exercising at least 5 days a week, and I do my best around that. Two, I've incorporated having like a me night. And so a me night could be me taking a long bath, a longer shower, watching nonsense on TV that requires nothing from me, just to be present. I try at least once a week to cook a really good meal. So usually on Sundays, I take my time. It's the 4 or 5 hour preparation dinner because it's something that I enjoy. I actually really like cooking and then I like eating it. So, I try and take the time out for that. I have children, and so being intentional about my time with them. So for my daughter, who's a little bit older, making sure that I carve out time for her and I to do whatever, whether that's play a game, sit down and talk, read together, being intentional about that. With my partner, us finding time to connect, and whether that be making a movie night with each other. Sometimes it's like listening to music and just having a conversation. Another part of my self-care plan is time with friends. Clearly right now it's hard to have face-to-face time with friends, but we are intentional about having phone calls, checking in with each other throughout the week because we're all working moms, and sometimes it's nice to have that space to say really inappropriate things that you shouldn't say about your children and your job, and the other person just get it, not try and tell you like, it's okay, make it better, that they just kind of agree and laugh like, yes, and we're going to be fine tomorrow. But I mean, those are some of the things in my self-care plan.
Let me ask you, as we speak about children, does mental illness show up differently in them, or can you talk about the difference in identifying mental illness in a child versus an adult?
So mental illness does show up differently in children, and most of that is because of their age. And so when symptoms present in them, it often looks different than adults. And so depending on the age of the child, again, it shows up with a lot of behavioral issues sometimes, maybe difficulty listening, easily distractible. For children who, when you think about kids, they tend to just naturally be kind of happy-go-lucky, not a lot of concerns in life. So if you have kids that are excessively worrying about things, overly nervous in situations, kids who are withdrawn, like don't want to play with friends, don't want to be involved in activities, having low mood, not engaging with the family. I caution some of that with adolescents. There's that angsty stage with adolescents, 13 to 16, where, their parents are the worst people in the world. Everyone just is against them. And so some of that is natural. And if you think about yourself in those teenage years, a lot of that is, I want to live my life, but I can't really live my life because I'm actually only a teenager. And so some of that push and pull is normal, but you want to look for the more extremes, like the adolescent that's locking themselves in their room and that doesn't have a lot of friends and isn't really connected, making sure that you're checking in, right? And I think for kids, it's really important from the time that they're really young, giving them emotional language, teaching them what does it mean to be happy, what does it mean to be sad, what does it mean to be angry, and talking through feelings and allowing them to talk through feelings, not making that a bad thing, but creating a dialogue so that, again, when they are feeling things, that they do know how to express themselves to you.
Are you chasing your purpose, or have you found your purpose?
I think I'm chasing my purpose. I think if I had found my purpose, I'd be sitting still, and I don't like sitting still. It's interesting. I think in the past, maybe week or two, I've actually been having this conversation with some of my mentors, like, what's next for me? I'm really trying to figure that out. And somewhere in between, have some ideas about what I want to do next, but also in a space of like, I don't know. And this is an interesting time and an interesting space of trying to figure that out.
What are some of the different types of therapy? Like, I myself have been to what they call talk therapy, and it was brilliant. I did it for about 2 years, and I knew I had an issue. I knew that I was just unhappy. Mind you, the optics would suggest that everything was going great in my life, right? However, I within myself, I was feeling down. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to do anything. A friend of mine, suggested me to go speak to a therapist, and I was apprehensive because I never want to get diagnosed. I'm not crazy, none of those things. But I knew something needed to change. I needed a shift. So I was introduced to talk therapy. What are some of the different types of therapy, and how important is it to just talk?
Right. So talking is really important. I think we undervalue how much it is and how freeing it is to talk. One of the nice things I tell my clients about talk therapy, it's like you get to say everything you want to say with no fear of repercussion, right? I'm not going to show up at Sunday dinner and tell your mom what you said about her, right? We're not going to go out for drinks and then I'm going to tell your best friend what you said about her, right? So it's a space where you really get to say what it is that you feel. And there's no fear that that person is going to come back and tell the people that you were talking about what you said. And it's a nice space where you get to have a sounding board, right? Because sometimes we get caught up in our own mind with our thoughts and our feelings about things, and we miss our own role in things, right? We miss our own interaction. We miss what we bring to the dynamic. And I think as a therapist, if you're doing your job, you're challenging people, right? You're not just allowing them to tell you their story and just going, okay, that's how it happened. You're pushing back a little. You're asking them questions. You're making them dig deeper. Talk therapy is probably the most common form of therapy, although even within talk therapy, there's cognitive behavioral therapy, there's trauma therapy, there's different forms within the talking. Other than talk therapy, there's like dialectical behavioral therapy. There are some people that do energy and do spirits. It all depends, again, around what works for you, right? There are some people that use like yoga, meditation, in terms of therapeutic practices. And so it's really about you figuring what feels comfortable to you and not being afraid to kind of try things out. I always tell people, if you think about doing therapy, whatever therapist you connect with, give it at least 4 sessions to see how it really feels, right? Typically, the first 2 sessions, the therapist is just getting to know you. And then thereafter, you get a better sense of, is this a good fit for me?
Right. I mean, guys, there is no shame in getting therapy and speaking to someone. We all have a story. We all need to tell our story, and we don't know how empowering our story would be. And there's so much healing in talking and healing in going to therapy. I know as Caribbean persons, it's not the first thing we want to do because, again, we think we're going crazy or, nothing wrong with we or whatever, or we're thinking, are we going to get diagnosed with drugs or whatever. However, just going to seek the help will assist you in your healing. All right. How can we as a community do better at showing up for each other? For ourselves first, and then for each other.
So I think step 1 is showing up for yourself. So really figuring out your self-care plan, I would say, is number 1. Remembering that self-care plan doesn't have to be like this great formal thing. It could be you saying, I'm going to commit to every Saturday taking a bath. I'm going to commit to, once a week after I put my kids to bed, watching that stupid show that I'm not going to tell anybody that I watch, but I'm going to sit there and watch it. So I think step one is really taking care of yourself. Step two is showing up for the people around you. And sometimes that's as simple as just a check-in, right? Whether that's a text message, a phone call, just reminding people that you love them, you care about them, you want to know what's happening with them, and then encouraging them. I think that there are spaces where people are going through things and we sit there and we kind of just all talk about how bad life is and we forget to talk about, but what are the things that are going well in the midst of all of the craziness? And knowing that sometimes it's okay to listen, but sometimes it's okay to push too, right? And to ask people in the space of all these things that are going wrong, what's one thing that's going well for you?
Yeah.
Right? In the space of even one thing that I've started to practice this year and I really like is gratitude, right? And just really asking yourself, what is one thing every day, getting up and just saying, what is one thing I'm grateful for? And reminding yourself, right? In the midst of everything going wrong, there are still good things, and reminding yourselves of that, because it's so easy to get caught in the negative of things.
So easy, especially in today's world. How important is setting intention in someone living with mental illness?
I think setting intention is important for everyone. I think for someone with mental illness, if it's significantly impacting them, setting intention helps them to figure out what's next for them. And setting intention can be around, I'm going to connect to mental health treatment and I'm going to stay in it, even the days it feels hard. I think setting intention helps them to figure out, again, how are they going to move forward in life? What are their commitments to themselves? I think for people with mental illness, being clear, because I just want to touch, because I know you said the piece about medication, is just always remembering medication is an option. No one can forcibly medicate you, right? And so just knowing that if I go see a therapist, if I go see somebody, it doesn't mean that they're going to hand me pills the second I walk in the door. And even if that is a suggestion, it's a conversation, and I always have the right to just say no, right? And so I think, again, figuring out in terms of that intention, what works for me? What's going to get me from the place I am right now to the place I really want to be?
Right. The oh Lord, there's so much that guys, I hope you guys have been journaling. I didn't ask you guys to journal in the beginning. I hope you guys are journaling and writing these things down, because Dr. Clarke is giving some amazing gems. All right, Dr. Clarke, what led you to this very special practice?
So what actually happened for me is in high school, I had an amazing social worker in high school, and she helped me through a really hard time in high school when I was transitioning, being a senior, going off to college, and some things had happened my senior year. And she was just an amazing support. And there was a part of me that really knew that I would not have made it through my senior year the same without her. And when I went off to school, I actually started out wanting to be an accountant, and I took the classes. And then I was like, this is boring, and this doesn't feel like it's making a difference, and I don't want to do this. And then I took my first psychology class and just absolutely loved it, and really found that I had a really good gift for connecting with people. And I really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed talking to me. And since then, that has just been what I've been doing, and I absolutely love it. I've been doing this for 20 plus years at this point. And it absolutely is purpose-driven. I love every moment of it. I love working with my clients. And it's been an amazing ride and a great experience for me.
Wow. This is, again, the talk of just talking, just speaking with someone, I think is so important. It's freeing. It helps you to identify the issues that you're having. It helps you to push past that feeling stuck. Again, when I had to go to therapy 2.5, 3 years ago, I felt stuck. I just felt stuck. I didn't know what, I was going through the motions. However, I just felt like I was not progressing. I was not moving forward. Physically, I was putting my foot forward in front of another, but mentally, I just felt like I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't accomplishing enough. I had this long list of things to do, and even though I'm ticking them off, I just wasn't feeling like I was accomplishing. So just talking to someone is super important. And another thing that I think in our community that I think is an issue is in finding a therapist of color. So now I have to speak to a therapist. But when I go to look for a
Mhm.
therapist, the therapist does not look like me. I think that's an issue.
Mhm.
Actually, I know someone that would like to go to therapy. However, that's stopping them. The fact that they cannot find
Mhm.
someone that they can identify does not look like them. How and I
Mhm.
see that there are changes and shifts happening, but how can we find, or where do we find? I mean, obviously, we're going to send everybody to you, but how do we find therapists that look like us?
So that is a challenge and an ongoing one. And so there is no like great like answer, like go here and this is where you'll get it. The reality is if you're going through your insurance, you can ask your insurance company if they can send you therapists of color, depending on where you live. There may be different networks and different websites that utilize that therapists register themselves at, and then you can look there. The other caution I give is that I completely appreciate the idea that there's sometimes a certain sense of comfort in sitting across from someone that looks like you.
Of course.
But sometimes that also leads us to automatically think that they're going to know, they're going to do. But the reality is, even if you and I look similar, it doesn't mean our experiences are similar.
True.
And so I will say, as someone who's been to therapy, I've had a white Jewish lady who was an amazing therapist and did a lot of great work with me. And I had a woman that looked just like me, and I went to 3 sessions and I was like, this isn't working for me, right? And so I think that the other part is it's really about the therapist, right? And so sometimes taking a deep breath and being willing to try, right? And it doesn't always mean that it's going to work, because I've had a white therapist before who was really disconnected and it didn't work out because she didn't get some of the stuff. But again, I think not automatically writing off because someone doesn't look just like us, but then again, using networks, using websites, and seeing if you can find someone that looks like you.
Okay. So we are, during this month, are setting intention. Throughout of the whole journey of chasing purpose, we have 4 pillars: nurturing faith, setting intentions, pursuing aspiration, all while living boldly. And in setting the intentions, we have these intention cards. And I'd like to pull a card for you as we're setting intentions. All right, so before I pull the card, let me ask you, what intentions are you setting for yourself professionally and personally?
So professionally, an intention I'm setting for myself is figuring out my next step. And so one of the things I've done this year is expand my practice. So I was in a solo private practice, and I've expanded and added clinicians, and in particular adding clinicians of color in order to give more access. And so that is one professional intention that I'm pursuing. Personally, I am working on being present with my children. And so I have an 8-year-old and an 8-month-old, which require very different needs. But realizing as a working mom that there's a lot of time that I'm doing divided attention because I'm trying to work and trying to take care of, but being more purposeful in spending time with them, putting the phone away, and just kind of being physical and being present with them.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to pull your intention cards. And again, I want to thank Stacey Hines for gifting us with these epic intentions, their daily intention cards. The first one I'm going to pick for you is, this works. I am compassion. I show genuine care and concern for another's well-being and show support towards them with their best interest at heart. I think that's pretty dope for you, Dr. Clarke. Yeah. All right, and I'll pull for myself. Yeah, I'll pull for myself. Okay. I know who I am. This is the I know who I am. I recognize that my true self is not the voice in my head. It's not the fear in my heart. It's not the thoughts and opinions of others. I am the observer of all things. I think brilliant for the both of us, especially talking about burnout. Tell us about the one thing that makes it rewarding, the journey of you being a therapist.
The one thing that makes it rewarding is seeing people get to the other side. And so often when people first start meeting with me, they are in really low places. They feel confused about a lot of things. And it's really nice to see them get to the other side where they are starting to feel well about themselves, where things are looking different in their life, and they're able to see themselves differently. That part, it feels really rewarding to me to know that I've been able to assist them on that journey, and just the beauty of seeing them see themselves differently.
Yeah. I want to say thank you. Thank you for that. I know that you are working with someone that's very special in my life. So I want to say thank you. Thank you. Continue to do what you do. We need you. We need your light. The world needs your light. And I'm going to ask you, just tell our listeners, our audience, where we can find you.
Sure. You can find me. So my first name is spelled Dion, and the last name is Clarke, Clarke. I am on Psychology Today. That would be the easiest way. So my phone number, email address, everything is up there.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Clarke, for your time and your insight.
Thank you.
So it is in the more that we dive deeper into the betterment of our well-being. It is in the more that we heal from our past traumas and break generational chains. It is in the more that we nurture our mental wellness. It is in doing the more that the burnout is a non-factor. Caring for our mental health is paramount in chasing our purpose. So, how are you pouring into your more? I leave you with this quote. Burnout is not about giving too much of yourself. It is about trying to give what you do not possess and not getting enough rest. Burnout is a sure sign that something needs to change. Thank you for joining us tonight. Good night.
It's so good, praise the Most High God every day with your whole heart desire. Lift him high, holy, 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 yeah. Holy Mount Zion, good job, let's The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. Make me down to lie in pastures green, shall lead me the quiet waters by. My soul, oh, hath restored again, and me to walk thou make within the path of righteousness, even for his name's sake. Yet though I walk in death's dark vale, yet will I fear no ill. Thy rod and staff, they are with me, they surely comfort still. My table, oh, has furnished in the presence of my foes. My head, oh, half anointed with oil, my cup it overflow. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me. And in just us forevermore, my dwelling place must be. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me. And in Jehovah's forevermore, my dwelling place shall be. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me, and in Jehovah's forevermore, my dwelling place must be. My soul, oh, hath restored again, and need to walk those days within the path of righteousness, even for his name's sake. yet will I bear no ill. Thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they surely comfort me.
My table, though half furnished, in the presence of my foes. My hand, though half anointed with oil, my cup it overflows.